Good morning, students. So, in the previous lecture, we have studied about hyperlinks, where we have studied what is image hyperlink and how we can apply normal hyperlink. And after that, we have started with form element, that is how we can create forms in HTML. Next topic is form controls. What type of controls are available that we can apply on any of the form. So in the last lecture we have also discussed about why we use form and what are the different properties that we can apply on any form. So the different controls were text box, radio buttons, check boxes, submit button. So these were the buttons that we can apply on any of the form. So let's start with next topic, form controls. What type of controls we can apply to perform different types of actions. So the very first attribute is name element. So if you want to give name to a form, you can make use of this name element. It specifies a name to a form. Next is action attribute. Now what is action attribute? Action attribute specifies the path where the form is to be submitted. So wherever you have to submit the form, you have to give the path within action element. And when the user clicks on submit button, if the action attribute is committed, the action is set to the current page. So see students, whenever we create a form and after creating the form we mostly make use of submit button, and submit button is used to submit the data. Now it depends where we have to store that data. So it depends upon different categories that whether you want to store that data at the client side or at some server side. So different methods are available to store the data, that is get method and post method. So the name of two method is get and post. So first of all, whenever you want to select any of the method, whether get or post, you must have to specify the name of that inside the method category. So method attribute specifies, so whenever you have to use get or post, you have to give that value inside the method. So first of all, you have to make use of method. So the method attribute specifies get or post method to the used when submitting the form data. So let's start with the first method. So the get method is the default method of submitting form data is get method. So this is the default method. If you are not applying any of the method, by default it will apply the get method. The data submitted by using get method is visible in the address bar, and it is better for data which is not sensitive. So as it is by default, we don't make use it whenever we have to store some sensitive data. So if the data is normal, it is not that much sensitive, then in that case we can make use of get method. And the number of characters in the get method depends on the browser. Next method is post method. Post method of sending data does not display the form data in the address bar. So this is the reason this is a very secure method. So whenever anyone has to submit sensitive data or some important information, then they must have to make use of post method instead of get method. Next is input tag. What we have already studied about the input tag in the previous lecture, that how we can apply text boxes, radio buttons, check boxes, submit button, password button, reset button. So these all are the following properties by using which we can apply these buttons on the form. The next topic that we have to start is text area. Now what is text area? If we are creating any text area, what type of attributes we can apply on the text area. So the next element is text area. So for example, if you want to write number of lines in a simple text box, in that case you can make use of text area tag. So it is used to create a text box with multiple lines. The number of lines and the width of the text box are specified by using rows and columns attribute. So in that case you also have to specify the rows and the columns. So these are the following attributes which are used for text, which are used within text area tag. First is name attribute. So it is used to specify name for the text area. For example, you can give any of the name, it is your choice. So the example is name is equals to TA1, whatever you want to give, T1, you can give any name. Next is rows. Rows will specify the number of lines in a text area. How many lines you want to create inside the text area, you have to give that value with the row tag. So the example of this is how you have to make use of this is rows is equals to 5. So this will create a text box in which you can write 5 rows. Next is columns. It specifies the width of a text area. Column attribute will specify the width, that how much width you want to create in the inside the text box. Next element is length attribute. It specifies the maximum number of characters allowed in the text area. So inside the length, or the length attribute will set the particular length. For example, you want to write 100 characters inside the text box. So in that case you have to set the maximum length of the text box as in 100. So you will be allowed to enter 100 characters only. You cannot write more than 100 characters inside that text box. Next is placeholder. It specifies a short hint that describes the expected value of a text area. Next is required field. It specifies that text area must be filled out, that is, you cannot keep it as a blank, it cannot be blank. So these all are the attributes of text area that we can apply. Next is look at this table on the left hand side, type and name, where you can give the type. You can also create a radio button inside the text area by just giving the type as a radio, and name is used to provide name to the text box. Maximum length will specify the maximum length of the text box, that is how many characters you can enter in the particular text box. Next is size. Size attribute is used with text and password type element. You can set the size of the password, size of the text box. Next is checked attribute. Checked attribute specifies the default selection for the options in a checkbox and radio button. So for example, you are creating a form for a student who has to opt science subject only. So you can by default select the science subject by setting its property as checked. So it will by default select the checkbox as well as radio button. You do not have to select by clicking on the checkbox and radio button. Next attribute is value attribute. It is used to provide value to the checkbox and the radio buttons, and to provide different values whatever you want to provide. So these all are the attributes. Next tag is select tag. Now what is select tag and why we use select tag? Select tag is used to create drop down list. So drop down list is when you click on the list, it will display a drop down menu. So it is used to create drop down list. So these are the attributes of select tag. Name will assign a name to the control. Multiple, it allows the user to select more than one value. So for example, you want to create a drop down list and you want to select multiple values from that list. In that case you have to make use of multiple attribute. Next attribute is size attribute. Size attribute is used to specify the number of visible values. how many values you want to display, or whatever values you want to display, you have to mention that part inside the size attribute. Next is option tag. Option, in case of option tag, you can make use of two things, selected and value. So to define the pre-selected option, selected attribute is added to the option, whereas in the value tag it assigns the value to the option specified in the drop down list. So these all are the attributes of text area tag, select tag, and you can simply use it on any of the form. Now let's study one example of the form. Look at the output number 6. For example, you want to create this type of form. So the elements in this output is enter your name, there is a text box, enter your standard, and there is a radio button. You can select only one button, 11, 12, and next is choose your optional subjects. These all are the check boxes. You can select a number of check boxes or number of options, whatever you want. And last is the submit button, which is used to submit the data, and it is your choice that if you want to submit the data by using get or post method. So look at the code of this example, how you can create this example. The code is, the first line is the HTML, which indicates the start of the HTML document. Next line is head tag. Inside the head tag, this is title tag. We use title tag to display the name or to display the title in the address bar. The title part is the title part will not display it on the form element. So form with inputs element, this is just a title, end of title tag, end of head tag. Now let's suppose we want to set the background color as orange. So we have to set the property as body. Start with the body tag, because we have to create the form inside the body tag. So body tag bg color is equals to orange. Bg color, whenever you have to set the background color, you have to make use of this tag bg color, and orange is the property that will set the background color as orange. Next is h1. H1 is the heading tag. So let's suppose we want to give heading as use of form. So you have to write the text as use of form inside the heading h1 tag and close h1 tag. Now let's begin form tag. You always have to start the form tag within the body tag. So this is the start of form tag. Now inside the form tag, we want to create a text box. First, in the first line we want to create text box. So what you have to do is enter your name. This is a label, it will display on your form. Look at the form, the first line is enter your name. Now input type is equals to text. Input type is equals to text will create a text box on the form, and the name that you have provided, or you can provide any of the name. So according to this example, the name n1 is provided to that text box. Maximum length is equals to 20, so it means the maximum length of the text box is 20. You can enter only 20 characters. And break tag is used to indicate the end of the line. So this will create a first line on your form. Next is enter your standard. So again, this is a label, and after the label, let's suppose you want to create radio button. So input type is equals to radio. This will create a radio button. Name is equals to r1. This is the name that we have provided to the form. Value is equals to 11 superscript th superscript close. Now in the next line, input type is equals to radio, name is r1, value 12, and by using this we can create the two radio buttons, 11th and 12th. So you know students, as th is how we can apply th as in 11th, 11 th. We have to make use of superscript tag to write th, so that's why we have used superscript tag. We have already studied in the previous lecture. Next is input type. Now we have to create check boxes. So for this we have to make use of checkbox. Input type is equals to check box name is equals to C1. You can provide any name, and inside the value you have to give the values that you want to display as in check boxes. So the first value is Hindi and the name is Hindi. The value whatever text we give inside the value or in the double quotes, that will not display on the form element. It will be for backend part. So the next, when we close the bracket and after that whatever we have written, it will be displayed on the form. So value is equals to Hindi will not be displayed. Next Hindi word will be displayed on the form element and break tag. This will indicate the end of the line. Next is input type is equals to checkbox name C2 value German, and the word that we want to display on the form is again German. So this will display a second checkbox with name German. Next is input type is equals to checkbox name C3 value biology and the word biology. So it will create a third checkbox as biology. Next is input type is equals to checkbox name is equals to C4 value is equals to IT and IT. So it will create a one more text box IT on the page. Input type is equals to submit. This will create a submit button because we have given the input type as submit and value is equals to submit. So it will create a submit button on the form. It will whatever name you want to give to this button, you have to write that button as in value with the value. If you want to write OK button, you have to give the value as OK in the double quote. So it will create this type of form. So this is a very simple code. You can easily design the form by using this code. Next is, this is one more example of form. Look at this example. Use a form element, enter your name, select your city, and this is a select box. Next enter your address. This is a text box again with multiple lines. So the code of this is, start with the HTML head title. In the title you can give any title whatever you want to give. Body BG color red. Then heading H1 will create a heading. Use a form element. Form method is equals to post. Now here we have mentioned the form method is equals to post and action is equals to data.php. It means we want to store that data by using method as in post. So this option will store the data at some site. Next is enter your name, input type text. This will create a text box. Next is select your city. This will create a select box, and in the select we have given three options: Pune, Nagpur, Solapur. For this you have to make use of tag option, tag, then city name, option, close. So by this way, when you click on this select box, it will display drop down list with three options: Pune, Nagpur and Solapur, and then select tag, close. Next is enter your address. Text name is equals to address. This will create a address box. Rows and columns, it will create 3 rows and the column as in 30. So this is the width of this text box. Input type is equals to submit. This will create a submit button, and value is equals to send. As we have written the value as send, it will create a submit button with the name send, and when we click on send button after filling the form, it will store the data at some site. So students, in the today's lecture we have studied about different attributes of text tag, select tag. After that we have studied how we have to create a form, and this is one more example of form. So that's all for today. Tomorrow we will start with next lecture.